Welcome to the deep dive. We take the source materials you send our way, articles, notes, all that, and really pull out the core insights for you. Think of it as your quick path to getting up to speed.
Hmm.
So today we're diving into something that might be, well, causing some quiet chaos right under your lawn, especially if you're in places like Huntersville, Charlotte, Mount Holly, over in North Carolina. We're talking about lawn grubs.
That's right. They're definitely one of those hidden headaches. Homeowners often don't realize they're there until the damage is pretty obvious.
And these grubs, they're actually beetle larvae.
Yeah, exactly. The sort of wormy baby stage of common beetles. Things like Japanese beetles, June bugs.
Right. And they live underground, munching on grass roots, basically cutting off the lawn's food and water supply.
That's the core issue. And the tricky part, like you said, is it happens below ground. You don't see it happening until the lawn starts looking really rough on top.
So if you've got those weird brown patches that watering doesn't fix, or maybe the lawn feels kind of soft, almost spongy.
Or you see animals digging around.
Ah, yeah, the digging. Skunks, birds.
Exactly. If any of that sounds familiar, this deep dive should hopefully clarify what might be going on beneath the surface.
Okay, let's dig in then. Our goal today, using the materials you sent, is to really get a handle on what these grubs are, how they damage lawns, how you can spot the trouble early, and importantly, what the sources say about solutions.
Sounds good. So, starting with the basics again. Grubs or larvae? The whole cycle usually gets going in, say, late spring, maybe early summer.
Okay.
That's when the adult beetles, the Japanese beetles, eating your flowers, or the June bugs bumping into the porch light, they lay their eggs, and they actually prefer laying them in healthy soil, in nice turf.
Huh. So having a nice lawn might actually invite them in initially. That seems backward.
It kind of is, yeah.
Yeah.
They look for good conditions for the eggs, but then, maybe a few weeks later, those eggs hatch, and that's when the real trouble starts brewing underground.
And these little larvae are hungry.
Oh, incredibly hungry, according to the sources. They go straight for the most vital part of the grass, the root system. That's their food source.
Eating the roots. So literally cutting the grass off from its lifeline in the soil.
Precisely. It's like snipping the straws the grass uses to pull up water and nutrients. If the roots aren't working, the grass just can't survive. Doesn't matter how much you water it.
And that's when we see the visible signs. The wilting, yellowing.
Yep. Leading eventually to those brown, dead-looking patches that people notice.
The sources mention something pretty dramatic for really bad cases.
Oh, yeah. That's when you know you have a serious infestation. If the grubs eat enough roots, they completely detach the turf from the soil underneath.
Wow.
The sources say, in those severe situations, you can literally just, grab a section of your lawn and peel it back, like rolling up a rug.
Good grief. That's vivid. And they don't just vanish over winter.
Not usually, no. Some might die if it freezes hard right at the surface, but they're pretty tough. When it gets cold, they tend to burrow deeper down.
Below the frost line?
Right, exactly. They go dormant down there to survive the winter. Then comes spring, as the ground warms up again, they migrate back up towards the surface and start feeding again before they, pupate and become beetles.
So if you don't treat it, the problem just kind of pauses and then picks right back up.
Pretty much. It compounds year after year.
Which is why ignoring it early on can lead to massive damage and really big repair bills later, maybe even replacing the whole lawn section.
Absolutely. Which brings us to, how do you catch this before you get to that roll up the carpet stage? The sources really stress early detection. It saves a lot of hassle.
Okay, so for folks listening, maybe in Huntersville, Charlotte, those areas, what are the specific things to watch out for?
Well, the sources lay out a few key signs. First, keep an eye on those dead or thinning patches. If you're watering like you should, and those spots just stay brown or weak, that's a big clue.
Suggests the roots aren't doing their job.
Exactly. They can't take up the water. Then there's that spongy feeling we mentioned.
Right. Walking on it.
Yeah. If the ground feels weirdly soft or loose in spots, it's often because the roots that normally hold everything together have been chewed away. If you can pull up a clump of grass super easily, that's a strong indicator.
And the animals. People notice the digging.
For sure. Birds, raccoons, skunks, they love grubs. It's a protein feast for them. So if you suddenly see more digging than usual, they're likely hunting something. And in a lawn, that something is often grubs.
So the digging is a symptom, not the main problem.
It's a symptom, yeah, but it also causes more damage, unfortunately.
Can you sort of predict if you're likely to have grubs?
The sources suggest you can get a hint by watching the adult beetles. If you remember seeing, tons of Japanese beetles or June bugs around your yard earlier in the summer, say late spring, early summer,
Okay.
that means more eggs were likely laid.
Hmm.
So higher chance of a grub problem developing later that season or maybe showing up next spring.
Gotcha. And just general lawn stress, even if you think you're doing everything right.
Yeah, that too. If your grass just looks generally unhappy, wilted, yellowish, even with good watering and mowing, it could be root damage from grubs preventing it from getting what it needs. It just looks stressed out.
Okay, so if you're seeing these signs, what do the sources say about tackling the problem? It sounds like timing is really important here.
It really is. The sources cover a few angles, homeowner stuff versus professional help. But a core idea is treating them based on their life cycle. They talk about two main types of treatments: preventative and curative.
Preventative. So stopping them before they start causing trouble.
That's the idea. You apply preventative treatments before the grubs hatch, or just as they're hatching when they're really small and vulnerable. The goal is to knock them out early, before they eat enough roots to cause noticeable damage.
Is there a best time for that? The sources mention a window.
They do, yeah. For that region, the sources generally point to early summer as the key time for preventatives. Specifically, they often mention mid-June through early August.
Because that's when the eggs are hatching.
Exactly. These treatments often work by staying active in the soil for a while, sort of waiting to intercept the newly hatched larvae.
Okay, but what if you missed that window, or you're already seeing damage now? What are curative treatments?
Right, so curative treatments are for when you already have an active infestation. The grubs are bigger, they're feeding, you're seeing the damage, the brown spots, the sponginess, the animals digging.
So you apply these later?
Typically, yes, usually late summer or into the early fall. These products are designed to kill the existing grubs more quickly.
But the damage is already done at that point.
That's the catch, yeah. Curative treatments kill the grubs that are there, but they can't magically undo the root damage. The lawn still needs time to recover, and you might need to reseed or do other repairs.
So it sounds like the sources suggest that maybe the best approach, long-term, is a combination. Preventative and curative, maybe as part of a regular lawn care plan.
That definitely comes across as a key strategy in the materials, yeah.
A year-round approach gives the best protection. And, the exact best timing for either type can shift a bit year to year based on weather and the specific grubs. That's where professional knowledge can be helpful.
Right. And the sources do mention professional grub control as an option for people in those Huntersville, Charlotte, Mount Holly areas. They specifically name drop Lawn Pride of North Charlotte as one example.
Yeah, they discuss professional services as a way to make sure you're getting the right product applied at the absolute best time for it to work. Sources highlight companies like Lawn Pride of North Charlotte, pointing out they usually start with a thorough inspection.
To figure out exactly what's going on.
Right. Identify the type of grub, how bad the infestation is, and then the idea is they create a tailored plan. Not just a generic treatment, but something specific for your lawn's situation.
Using, as the sources say, proven methods.
Yeah, meaning established techniques, products that work well against the grub life cycle, sometimes products that might need professional handling anyway. So why would someone opt for professional help for grubs based on what we read? What are the main upsides?
Well, the obvious one is protecting how your lawn looks.
Right.
Keeping that curb appeal, protecting your investment. And it also helps get rid of those digging animals by taking away their food source.
And maybe saves money and headaches down the line.
That's a big argument in the sources, yeah. Preventing severe damage. The cost of professional treatment done right and on time is often way less than having to, resod large areas after an untreated infestation destroys it. It's kind of an insurance policy against a bigger problem.
Plus, I guess just knowing it's being handled properly. Peace of mind.
Exactly. The sources suggest pros like Lawn Pride have that specific regional knowledge. They know the local grub cycles, the best timing. And often they offer broader lawn care, too, like fertilization, which helps the lawn recover and resist future problems. They mention free estimates, too, as a way to just check it out.
Okay, so let's try and wrap this up for you, our listener. We've taken a deep dive into lawn grubs, especially relevant for areas like Huntersville, Charlotte, Mount Holly. We talked about what these beetle larvae feasting on grass roots. We covered the damage they cause underground, leading to those visible signs like brown patches, spongy turf, and animals digging up the yard.
Yeah. Those key warning signs.
And we looked at the solutions outlined in the sources, emphasizing the timing difference between preventative treatments, best in early summer, and curative ones for existing problems later on. Plus, the option of getting professional help for, accurate diagnosis and effective treatment.
Right. Just understanding those signs and knowing there are ways to both prevent and treat these things can really save your lawn from a lot of damage and, frankly, a lot of stress for you.
Definitely. You know, thinking about all this unseen life working away just beneath our feet, affecting the world we see, it kind of makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other hidden cycles or processes are quietly shaping the health and look of the everyday spaces right outside our homes? And what could we learn if we paid closer attention?
Thank you for listening to the